think we agree on the priorities, as I understand it, to be jobs and what we can do to put 175,000 Minnesotans back to work, and continue our efforts, much of which were bipartisan last year, on government reform, making state government more efficient, more cost-effective, more responsive to our citizens. We may have our legitimate disagreements on how best to achieve each of those goals, but my hope is that we can, as I have a sign in my office from Governor Purpose, none of us are as smart as all of us, that we can take the best ideas from both perspectives, or all perspectives, and bring those together and come out with a constructive session. I think that's what Minnesotans want, and that's what they deserve.
I do look forward to working with the governor, with our legislative leaders and colleagues on a very succinct, quick session that's focused on reform, focused on bringing Minnesotans back to work, keeping Minnesota competitive, helping ourselves not only put our best foot forward, but actually catch up and do a little bit more to lead the recovery instead of waiting to come to Minnesota. It was a great pleasure working with the governor last session on some of these reform initiatives. Some have actually taken effect. We can see some successes. There needs to be adjustments along the way. We remain willing to work with him on that as well, but also to be done a little bit early. Senator Bakk has a little more aggressive timeline, but that's fine. We're happy to work to get out of here quicker, but do look forward to reform for the sake of reform now, maybe not reforming in the past to balance the budget.
You know, the whole thrust of, I think, our initiative, and I think, frankly, it reflects that of the speakers too, is jobs, the economy, looking to reform government, and growing towards a more prosperous Minnesota. That's why we come, that's why we're here, that's what we're dedicated to. And so we'll be working certainly in that vein going forward, and initiating various policy procedures, various other initiatives that might take us there.
Our primary task has to be about getting people back to work, getting middle-class families the opportunities that they need. I hope that we have a efficient and a quick session, but I think instead of setting deadlines, what we ought to be thinking about is making sure that we solve the problems that Minnesotans want us to solve. And once we accomplish those tasks, then it's time to go home. And those tasks, to me, are jobs. It's addressing property taxes, and then doing something along these reform efforts. And if we don't get distracted by things like constitutional amendments and other things, we certainly can meet the deadlines that everybody set.
I don't see any reason we should be here past Easter. I think it's very important we pass a bonding bill as early as possible, so that, and with shovel-ready projects, so that those projects can get in the ground during this construction season. We have a construction industry that is not in a recession. It's in a depressed state. You can ask any construction employer out there about that. So I look forward to doing that as early as possible in the session. Outside of that, I don't see a lot that has to be done.
I'll ask a stadium question, I guess. In general, and this is for any of you, what kind of, where does that fall on priority lines for you guys this session, and maybe even more specifically earlier in the session?
As a priority, I mean, I'm a football fan, so I mean, personally, it's a priority. I love to watch the Vikings. This season was painful, but isn't it always with our beloved Vikings? But for most Minnesotans, it's not a priority. They don't necessarily care if we fund a stadium for professional athletes, and that's fine. It should be, as we've said time and time again, those of you who are here from the Capitol press corps have heard us say 1,000 times, it should be tied to the game. It should be something, as you as a fan choosing to go to the game are a part of building that new stadium. We get to that point, and whether or not it's, as Senator Senjem said, it's beginning, middle, end, until you see, I think that's probably your best indicator going forward as to where the bill or where the final passage is in the process.
The Vikings are incredibly frustrated. The team ownership has done exactly what Governor Plenty and now the legislative leaders have asked them to do. They were told to go out and find a site and a willing local unit of government partner, and then we'll take up your issue. They have done that. And then the other issue has been, well, we'll take up the stadium after the budget is resolved. And I get that. I think we all agree on that. Well, the Vikings have went out and found a local partner. They have a site. The budget is resolved. Now, I don't know what the next roadblock is, but I think the Vikings deserve a vote on this issue. And we ought to send some message to the NFL whether Minnesota wants to have a football team or not. And if the legislature upstairs decides that it's not important, well then, I guess the owners can start looking for another state to play in. But they have done what they've asked to do. I think the leaders are making this harder than it needs to be.